Maybe not. Okay.
Okay. Take 2. We just had a phone call disrupt our recording session. Lesson learned, and none of it saved.
So boo-hoo.
Boo-hiss. Yes. So welcome back to episode 2 of Em and Bug Talk Books. I'm Em.
And I'm Bug.
And we are going to, once more, begin talking about The A to Z of Everything by Debbie Johnson.
Yes.
Really good dialogue.
I know, that was great dialogue, but we can still pick up because I took notes. And so that's going to keep us. So I really do feel like, I read this book very purposefully, just, so that I could remember some notes. So one of the things that I originally challenged myself with as I completed the book was I wanted to say, I asked myself, what was my favorite part and why? Mm-hmm. And in reflecting back on the book, I found that I actually had a hard time saying exactly like, oh, this was my favorite chapter or this was my favorite part. So I was able to kind of pick out some things that really stuck, really spoke to me.
Right.
And there were a lot of things why I was even really interested in reading the book anyway, because I felt like there were just a lot of things that I was like, oh, this speaks to me. I could, align it with, something in life, me personally or just in life. So there were, like I said, there was a couple things. So number 1, the Oasis Festival. So the sisters go to an Oasis festival and I like Oasis. So, there you go. The other thing was A is for Ashes. And so one of the things was Andrea wanted the girls to take her ashes and spread them to the 4 winds, which is, plot twist, the book that I'm going to be pitching to you today. Yeah, so little Easter egg find there. So I was like, oh, I need to write that down. Of course, C is for champagne, which is, life needs a little fizz, and that could be sparkling water. So it's, whatever floats your boat. W was for Wonderwall, which again was an Oasis song that, that I could really relate to. And then Y is for Yesterday. And I really liked that because that played into what I would say my favorite quote was from the book. And so that was, our yesterdays make us who we are, and our tomorrows make us who we will become.
Right.
And so I thought that was a really cool saying. And that really does kind of pull the gist of the book together, in that Andrea, the mom, really wants the girls to forget about yesterday and be ready to move on with tomorrow. Exactly. Yeah. And then the other thing that she says very early on in the book that she does say a couple times is you'll always have each other, which in the end they do. So they're going through grief, they're going through love, and then finally some redemption at the end of the book. And when we had first started talking about the book too, I did say just a little bit like, when I was first diving into the book, you sold it to me.
Right.
And so then when I was first diving into the book, I don't necessarily feel that I got what I was looking for. And that's not to say that I didn't get something, something else. So, favorite part, favorite quote. And then we really started talking a little bit about why I didn't like about the book.
Yeah.
And I think that's what really got us going down a lot of discussion.
Yes.
And that was the reason that they fell out.
Yes.
And then the loneliness, that impacted them all. And inside of that reason was the way that Rose reacted to that.
Yes.
And she really has to come to a space or a place in her life. It's very far on in the book. She chose Gareth, and then she basically then has to admit to herself that if she admits that she was wrong in choosing Gareth over her sister, over Poppy,
right,
that she really has to then take responsibility for this entire time loss.
Right.
So we started in 1984. We're all the way up to 2014. We start when they were about 9 years old. I think this incident happened when they were in their 20s.
Yes.
And now, Rose has a child that is, a couple years shy of being 20 years old himself. So I think that when I look, I waffled back and forth between which characters did I like, which characters didn't I like, and I felt like one chapter I liked Poppy, and then the next chapter I was like, I like Rose. Another chapter I'm like, I don't like Poppy, and another chapter I'm like, I don't like Rose. So I felt like they did a really neat job of going back and forth. And I actually wanted to actually count how many chapters did Poppy get and how many chapters did Rose get. I actually wanted to look at that.
Nice.
But then I forgot. And so they really kind of take you back and forth with your emotions as you're, really getting to know the characters until you get to the event, that occurred in their life.
Yeah. So what I really liked about the book, I'll start there. What really drew me in is, number one, I think the author absolutely nailed the sister dynamic before the incident.
Oh, yes.
It was so good. Like whenever my favorite part, and it's colored because you know what happens and everything else that happens later, but my absolute favorite part is where when they're kids, it's very early on in the book, but Rose is getting bullied by a girl at school.
Yes.
And Poppy comes flying through the ether, and that bitch is on the ground. She's like, you're not touching my sister. And immediately I was like, hell yeah.
It's like, I can say something about my sibling, but you cannot.
Yeah.
And they were super tight. They were doing everything together. I was even touched with the opening of the book, which I think kind of is a little foreshadowing. I mean, we know what's going to happen in the book, right? But a little foreshadowing because you're learning how they dealt with their first loss together. As young children. It was a goldfish. I remember bearing a goldfish.
First experience with death.
Yes.
And then comes arguably, hopefully, what is going to be their biggest experience with death.
Yeah.
If things go according to, then, they're most likely going to pass within a certain time of each other. So they will have the loss of their sister later down the road.
Yeah.
But, assuming it goes to like an average lifespan, it's going to be, within their 80s and everything else. And like, I feel like it's just a little bit different versus like your mom.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Definitely different dynamic.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it's kind of like, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of interesting. Like, your parent, like they've known you their whole life. I guess, they've known you your whole life, but you haven't known them their whole life. And so when it comes to a sibling, I mean, again, it's kind of that dynamic.
Yeah.
So one of the other favorite parts that I didn't re-mention was all the way in chapter 72, where they're all together at the cottage, right? So I thought that was cool. So, as they're going through this dynamic, I mean, it's a definite roller coaster of emotions for sure. At the end, they do all end up at the cottage together. So Poppy ends up moving into her mother's house, which remember Rose had some uncomfortable feelings.
She had some feelings about that.
When she was first staying there. Yeah, like Poppy has decided she's unhappy with her life and she wants to change it.
Yes.
And so, so then they're all together at the end, celebrating together, Rose and her son, and most importantly, Louis and the dog, so I thought that was, kind of a nice way to really wrap it up. And then they do, end up ultimately helping each other get through this,
right.
This loss,
right. Which I appreciated.
Yeah.
But I struggled so much with finding out why they split up, about what caused the rift in the sister bond.
Yes.
For context, this is a big spoiler. For context, Gareth and Poppy have sex at a party, but it's not like Gareth assaults him. Like Gareth assaults her, basically.
Yeah. She's drunk. How can you really be giving consent in that scenario?
Yes. And not only that, but it was an intentional plying her with alcohol over the course of the night, separating her from the group. Giving her cocaine, which he knows she has never done. And then when she's at a point where she can hardly walk, she can barely communicate, he takes her upstairs and is like, oh, let me help you to bed.
He escorts her upstairs.
And then starts molesting
where she was not able to get herself.
Yes.
She would have gone to her room on her own.
Like that's where she was headed, upstairs to her room by herself because she felt unwell. Because he had been doing these things. And she's 20 years old. She recognizes that this man is toxic and is manipulating her sister. And she's just trying to stay in her sister's proximity so she doesn't lose her entirely. She's like, I don't want her to be lost to me fully. Yeah. And that's what ironically ends up happening through her attempts to stay close to her because this man is a predator.
Yeah.
And so Poppy, from her perspective, which, again, as we had said, in real life, she probably would not remember how it went down or what happened.
Right.
Because of the amount of alcohol and drugs that were given to her.
Yes.
And so basically she's like, I didn't say no, I didn't fight him off, which are very common themes for people who are sexually assaulted.
Yeah. You feel guilty when you are a victim.
So she's going through all these things, and, you know, Rose catches them. She doesn't have the full context of what happened or what went down. And she just cuts Poppy out. She chooses Gareth because he's like, oh, I'm sorry. She made the first move. Never even listens to what Poppy has to say. Through 17 years of this.
Yeah, never takes the opportunity. And so I think when we begin to look at the Gareth character, again, because I have just finished reading this book, It's Not You, that really talks about unhealthy behaviors, unhealthy personalities, definitely looking at aggressive personalities, manipulative personalities, things like that, which Rose does come to realize. I mean, she obviously... I absolutely do not like the way that she responded. She never even allowed Poppy to have a voice, but she definitely suffered at the hands of it, if you will.
For sure.
You know, because when you look very early on, the isolation begins. She begins to be separated from her family. She begins to be separated from her sister. I was already upset before that even happened. I figured maybe Poppy had decided. I thought maybe that was part of the rift with the forgetting of the birthday and not doing the things that they would normally do together. And it became to where she wasn't even really able to see her sister on her own. Like when she thought, remember, she had gone to town thinking that she was going to have this one-on-one with her sister. And that's where you begin to see the manipulation and the control that's going on there.
Yes.
And so we do delve a lot into the abuse in this relationship that Rose had to go through. But to your point, we never really spend a lot of time really talking about the abuse that Poppy went through at the hand of this we'll call him this person, at the hands of Gareth. And so I think that's where, maybe we would like a little bit more clarity and a little bit more acknowledgement, because even though Rose does end up saying, I forgive you and I can't imagine my life going on any longer without you, she does still say that she forgives, but she doesn't forget. And Poppy definitely was innocent in this scenario. And then the way we build her character is almost around, well, she's just kind of like that. And the fact of the matter is that she was assaulted, violated, and just the way that he manipulated this relationship. And so she was a victim in that. And again, we just really don't go into that. And then I think the fallout that we see is the loneliness and the suffering. And so we started talking about Poppy, the way that she then chose to live her life after that. And I really think she just had trouble really getting into relationships, like long-standing relationships. Rose became not taking care of herself, very self-degrading. She also had somebody that was, doing that to her. And then we talk a little bit about the mom who it resulted in them her mother having to live 3 separate lives. So she was living her life, and then she lived a life with Rose, and she lived a life with Poppy. But never did she come in and say, hey, like, this is an abusive person. Now that you realize that, surely you understand how he also abused and manipulated. I'm not even going to say manipulated Poppy. He just straight up took advantage of her when she was in a very predatory, like, you set your prey up. And so I do think that he knew what he was doing when he was, giving her drink after drink and then getting her isolated. But we really don't give Poppy that grace or that benefit of the doubt anywhere in the book.
No, I feel like the book and Rose are fully aware and capable of assigning victim status to her. But neither Rose nor the book gives Poppy any grace. Like, it's just like, I forgive you for being such a slag, but like, I don't, it's inconvenient for me to be lonely, so I'm going to let you back into my life, kind of thing. And I'm just like, and poor Poppy, as happens with victims of sexual assault, like she's like, I'm sorry, like, this was my fault. I don't know what happened. Like, that was unforgivable. And hearing and having it take so long
It was practically a couple of chapters towards the end of the book. So you're getting very frustrated. Like, Rose is not really willing to let Poppy off the hook, as she says at one point in the book. And she is even, she's suspicious of Poppy when Poppy meets the neighbor. And she is uncomfortable with the relationship that Poppy is developing with her son, and that she had been putting money aside from him. And, Poppy has gone through probably just as much, if not more, pain than Rose has gone to go through. If we're, trying to say, I feel like she suffered more at the hands of it, and she was not in control. She didn't have a chance to make a decision. Yeah. She just found herself in an unfortunate, devastating scenario that now she was just completely cut off for. Right. And we don't ever really, come to fruition for that. And nobody comes to Poppy's rescue.
No. And like that's why I was like, I think Rose is my least favorite character. But then I swapped over to it being the mom, because at no point during this does she tell Poppy, look, that wasn't your fault. I know that things went sideways with your sister. Like, she was in an abusive relationship. Like, sometimes these things happen. But like, what happened to you was something that was done to you, not something that you did.
Yes. So, when we restarted, I'm not sure if we said spoiler alert.
I'll make sure to put spoilers in the description and on the thumbnail.
And then I also think when you, like I said, when I went into this book, I didn't really, I had expectations. I think I came out with something different. But I think this is also something that is when you're going to watch something and they're like, this is stuff for sensitive audiences, or like if this disturbs you or something. Right. So I think that if somebody honestly has been the victim, I think that this book could possibly be a little triggering for somebody who has maybe gone through that scenario and felt like they were not given the benefit of the doubt, the opportunity to have a voice. And there's many reasons why people do not come forward. And I think in this scenario, Poppy tried to, at least, she's apologizing and begging her sister to come back. Right. So it's not even, I don't even think in her mind she was trying to come forward as a victim of assault. But I think that's because she was so focused, anyway, the way that the book plays it out, is that she is so focused on the loss of her sister and really trying to get that back that, she is just kind of dealing, what things that she is, kind of going through. So, so that's kind of a lot. So I'll shift this a little bit to like favorite characters and why. And it's interesting because as we're having this discussion, it's even forming my opinions a little bit more. So originally I was thinking that Andrea, the mother, may be my favorite character because they really play her off as this fun, loving, carefree, strong person. Right. And we even then look into her life and we see why she is a single mom and the things that she's gone through. And Lewis, who is her unwavering friend, he describes her as, this beacon of energy, a blast of dazzling light, a rainbow. And they come together because of this mutual loneliness. And so, they kind of I'm thinking, and I like Betty the dog, so they're really bringing you into that. As we're having this discussion, though, I feel like we talked about Rose being a bit of an absent mom and being so caught up. And again, I think she is a victim of abuse as well. Yeah. Being just really caught up and damaged with that, and maybe being an absent mom. But I feel like Andrea, as the mother of these two girls, had the opportunity. She saw Poppy come home devastated. She saw the direct results. I'm sure she knew what had happened. And so she, maybe she had the opportunity to, dare I say, rescue Poppy, or I don't know, maybe just kind of acknowledge what has happened here and then
advocate for her.
Advocate for her. Yes. Okay. Maybe that's the word that I'm looking for, because nobody stuck up for Poppy.
No, I loved how you phrased it. Like, nobody comes to Poppy's rescue. Yeah. And that really just, it really got to me. It really did. I figured, and I can forgive the immediate reaction from Rose, the initial shock, because if you find your sister and your fiance, upstairs in bed together, which is what happens. If she finds them upstairs and in bed together, your initial thought is going to be, the betrayal, high
emotions. Which I think it's pushed up against a wall. Yeah. So I'm just saying.
Yes. Yes, you are correct.
There's just a difference.
Yes, there's a difference. Yes.
Again, it's the whole, this is really not a consensual situation that's going on here.
For
and so
sure.
it's, yeah.
But without that context of knowing, what transpired before, the fact that he had drugged her, and, from your perception, this is a consensual encounter, you would feel, some kind of way. And the bigger betrayal would come from your sister, not your fiance. It's like, this is some Joe Blow I picked up off the street. You're supposed to be like my person.
Yeah.
So I can forgive the immediate reaction.
Absolutely.
I can even give empathy and grace for, not understanding, but empathy and grace for her continuing on in the relationship based on the type of abuse and the enmeshment that he had, her victimhood, basically. Like how she was being abused would absolutely play into staying in that relationship. And your brain would have to be like one or the other. Like I can't, like both of these things can't coexist.
Yeah.
But the fact that it was been like 14 to 17 years later, because Joe, is that the son's name?
Yes.
So because Joe is 17, Rose's son, Joe, he's 17, and Poppy has never met him. And that's personal for me because I have a kid and my sister is very involved in their life. And I can't imagine. Cannot imagine
and
depriving
how cruel
them.
that is.
I know. So, and I could see that continuing on as a part of the abuse and manipulation. I could absolutely see that and give some grace and grace and empathy for it. However, the fact that it has been like, I think it's like 14 years since she has been in a relationship with Gareth. They were married for like 2 or 3 years before they split. And at no point does she go, I was being manipulated and abused. Maybe I should listen to Poppy. Maybe I should go back and reevaluate whether or not that instance, like she could atone for her own behavior. Like, well, I was being abused. So like, that's why I did the things that I did. Okay, fair. Why are you not extending that same grace to Poppy at year 3? That to me would have been a very engaging storyline because it's like, look, I just got out of this relationship and I made mistakes.
Yeah. She recognizes that she makes mistakes. You know what I don't know though, while we're talking about it, is if she actually acknowledges, does she actually acknowledge, do you think? I mean, we hear a lot about how this relationship went and we're from the outside looking in. I still think Rose is in denial.
Okay.
I think, I don't know. I'm not sure what you feel about that. But I mean, obviously it's very clear to us that you were in an abusive relationship. Obviously things didn't go well. He isolated her big time. And part of isolating her was getting her sister cut off. He was already cutting Poppy out of her life, quite frankly, before he did this.
Yeah.
I just really wonder if Rose actually has enough realization of that, or maybe it is denial on her part, because she does admit that if she admits that she's wrong, which means she knows she was, then now she's responsible for all these years that they threw away. So I will recant on that topic then, because I do feel like she does know. I just think that she remains in denial, and it's easier to be mad, right, than to say, I was wrong, and I'm sorry that this happened. And I realized that I was in an abusive relationship and you were abused by the same person as well. Like, do we feel like Rose has that level of, I don't know, I don't want to say maturity, but what is it there to where I think
you're onto something.
You know?
Now that I think about it, does the book
doesn't acknowledge it.
It never.
Yeah. Because I'm bringing this in from the book that I've read and going, oh, this is like, read between the lines. This is textbook abuse for both of the girls. You see how it's wrecked lives. Like this one person wrecked 3 people's lives.
But the book treats it as a failed relationship.
It does.
Because even like at some point in the book, she's like, no, I'm not going to tell Joe about like, XYZ about his dad because it's my job to protect that relationship. No, it's not.
Yeah. I mean, your father is manipulative and you're sending your son to, and I mean, I get that there's not a lot of control, but I just don't think she's really honest about the relationship to herself. And the book just doesn't really go into that. But I don't know how you can come out of that book and not kind of, see that.
Right. I'm wondering then, if the book treats it as a failed relationship and the book never acknowledges that Poppy was assaulted, that does beg the question, does the author recognize that either of those things are true, because both are true. I mean, based on the facts of what happened and how it transpired, Rose was being abused and manipulated and isolated. Poppy was assaulted. And Gareth just kind of gets to go live his life.
And continue to see his son. I mean, and he's got a new wife and a new child.
Isn't he on wife number 4 or something?
It seems like he's winning. I don't know.
Yeah,
and these people are continuing to suffer at his hands. So interestingly enough, Gareth becomes a bigger character than we really think that he is. When you begin to kind of break it down, he really is a bigger character, you know, because there's just a lot of damage. And so, and I think this is why too, like I'm thinking we're going through this grief. We're going to talk about dealing with end of life issues. And this book is ironically or unexpectedly about assaults, toxic relationships, abusive relationships, unhealthy responses, to that. I mean, they each coped with the fallout in their own ways. They all three coped with the fallout in their own ways. And so when we talk about Andrea, and we're like, okay, we feel like you didn't really advocate for Poppy. But I do think now I'm like, okay, I understand why you made the decisions you made. You were there when your mother died. That was very difficult. Maybe you didn't want the same struggle to go the same way. But in some weird way, it is kind of an unhealthy coping or a selfish, I don't know. I didn't really think this until now that we're talking about it. And they do say, like, they were all three put in this position, including her. And Poppy feels like it is like they were responsible for putting their mother, it might have even been Rose that said that, feel like they're responsible for putting their mother in this position where she couldn't reach out to her daughters. Well, I mean, she made a decision as well, too. So I think it's just interesting that we the characters fall into a pattern or fallout from this abusive person being in their lives that they never really found a healthy way to cope with it. Instead, they divided themselves. You immediately sense the overwhelming loneliness that they're all three going through. We even talked about they all had a favorite show that they all loved, that they probably all watched together at one time. And now they're watching this show separately. And so, I'll say to the author, I feel like good job at stirring up all these emotions and making it so deep. And, maybe if I don't know, maybe the story's not going to be there and all this reflection and thought is not going to be there if we don't see kind of the mess of life going on. It just is kind of frustrating because we're like, I didn't get kind of what I was looking for, but that's because, again, I went in with these preconceived notions, and what we got, we feel like we're reading into, diving in, unpacking it, but it's not like the book really told us this. So it's just it's very interesting.
What I was expecting was, what does repair look like had Poppy actually slept with her fiance? Like, if it was just I got drunk and oh crap kind of thing. What does repair look like after that? What does coming back from that look like? We didn't get that. Or if it was, as it played out, like Poppy was assaulted, Rose gets to wrestle with those feelings now. But instead, the very beginning of her actually even acknowledging that Poppy might be innocent comes so far at the end of the book
at the end of the book.
See any of that wrestling with that heavy material. And
you don't.
But one thing I will say that I thought was really well done that kind of pulled me at the beginning was the kind of in tandem of seeing we're starting out at this point in the present. We're starting out at this point in the past when they're kids, and then you come to the present, and then it moves forward here, and then it shows you more here. And so you see in tandem it leading up to them meeting for the first time after their mother passes, and also showing their relationship up to the incident. And then once you get to the incident, having it all kind of come together, and then basically you're all in the present moving forward with them. So it's
great character building.
I really appreciate that. It was so well done. And so I think overall I was disappointed because I feel like having those weighty conversations and like wrestling with those real life issues, like human screw ups, because we're messy.
Yes.
were messy. And so I was expecting there to be like, some heavy lifting on the emotional side, because there was so much thought put into how the book unfolded, and also how Andrea did the scavenger hunt, like the A to Z of everything, and like showing their lives beforehand, and presenting these memories, being, look at what you guys are missing. But I felt like that scavenger hunt should have been basically directed at Rose, because
Rose needed to find herself back to Poppy. Poppy always wanted to be there.
Yes.
It was Rose that cut her out.
Even in the present, she is still not the one who's pushing away. She's waiting. She stopped running after, but she's not pushing away. She's desperately worried that if she makes a wrong move, Rose is going to bolt again.
That is true. Yeah, she's very cautious of her words. And then you see an immediate coming home of Poppy.
Yeah.
You see an immediate coming home. And I think that Poppy moving through, I feel like they're both doing this, but I feel like it's more on Poppy's side too, where she really is hurt by the pain and the struggle and the not being there for her mom, while her mom was ill and going through all of that. So yeah, I think it almost kind of makes you feel a little sad for Poppy at the end.
Yeah.
When Poppy ends up at the house, Poppy completely, upends her life and, basically leaves behind a life that she's like, I'm truly unhappy.
Yeah.
And so, it's great of a coming together, but obviously there's a lot more to go. The book ends, right? Like if there were a second book, like where would it be? Because I don't know how you can be happily ever after without really truly dealing with these huge topics.
Yeah.
So I mean, I feel like, so you were talking about, I did really appreciate the writing. I think that the book was very well read. I mean, it really does draw you in. And I do like the flashbacks and the coming back and forth. And it really is just excellent character development. Like I feel you really got to know the characters. And I think that's because we took the time. Now, it drove me mad, though, that we were 26 chapters in before we got to A, to know what A was going to be.
Yes.
Okay. So, but I mean, I think that it had to be that, because if that had come in earlier, it would have meant a lot less. You can't understand the journey of the A to Z of everything,
right,
if you don't go through the journey that happened before then. So yeah, I definitely think that was good. See if there's anything else that I was kind of thinking. I mean, it was easy to read, but obviously a tough topic, and originally I'm like the impact of toxic relationships, this betrayal, but I don't think it was a betrayal. And I think that that is a very important point for us to recognize, that you do have to be careful about the conclusions that you're kind of coming to. And so I find it interesting when I was reflecting on it, I did write down the word betrayal, but it wasn't a betrayal.
No.
Poppy was betrayed by a person that they were both trusting.
And then betrayed by her sister.
And then betrayed by Rose. And so, so it just really, I guess that's why it's so great to talk about books, right?
Yeah.
Because you find these different perspectives. And I feel like even finishing the book, knowing what you thought about it, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to trust her again next time she recommends a book. I was on a complete roller coaster. I was looking for another. I mean, I thought it was the birthdays. Then it ended up being, basically Poppy being assaulted. And then I was thinking that, honestly, Rose hung on to it for so long that I honestly thought that I was just waiting for this to happen, that Rose was going to say, yeah, no, I'm not going to forgive you, and I'm going to move on. And so you guys really had me looking for another crisis. And so each chapter I went into, I was like, ooh, is this going to be the one? Is this going to be the one? And notice I didn't think that it would be Poppy that would say no. I felt like it was going to be Rose that said no. So the fact that Rose, and maybe the author does this purposely, is keeping us holding on to the very end to actually see what Rose is going to do, because she's not really going to give it to us too soon. So maybe the timing and the play there is all really good. I think maybe what's just missing, especially in the world of today, is really acknowledging abuse when we see it, acknowledging assault when we see it, the toxic behaviors when we see it. I think that is probably where, we're maybe kind of left wanting a little bit more, or wishing that we had a little bit more acknowledgement of that in the book.
And I will say, whenever I pitched the book to you, I can't remember. I know I did not have the context of Gareth having plied Poppy with alcohol and drugs. I'm not even sure I didn't even know why.
Yeah, you didn't know. Yeah.
I didn't know what had caused the rift. So I was sitting there reading like the absolute perfect portrayal of childhood bond for sisters 2 years apart. And seeing this crushing loneliness that was just obviously killing both of them.
You appreciate it immediately. It's sad, actually, when you see that for all three of them.
And so as a younger sister myself, I was like, what on earth could Poppy have done? Like, it has to be something to do with the fiance, but what? And so that's the point, because I had been completely sucked in. Now, had I finished the book, or at minimum gotten to the point where you find out what actually happened, I probably would not have pitched it to you.
Yes, just because, I mean, we've had conversations about that, and I think that's important. Last time we really talked about book club and things like that. I think that, and which is why we were like, this is kind of a potential trigger alert, because some, just some conversations are a little bit more triggering, or some books are a little bit more triggering. We've already had a few books that, someone is like, I just can't even continue reading this book because it's very triggering for me. And so, I mean, this is a tougher book than we really thought.
Or the pitch might have come a little bit differently, been like, hey, this is the book. It's got me hooked. This is what's happening. I'm going to I've reached a point where I'm kind of concerned, and I'm like wondering, like, did I miss something? Am I reading this wrong? Like, is this, because I think these types of conversations are important whenever we have representations of these very weighty topics in media. It's like, was it handled in a way, like avoiding it's not necessarily the best answer either. So the pitch definitely would have been different.
Yeah.
But I have definitely enjoyed the conversation.
I definitely have. And I kind of, in one way, I laugh. I mean, this genre, women's fiction with emotional drama. Debbie Johnson, the author, we know she lives in Liverpool. She writes feel-good, emotional women's fiction. This did not feel good.
It did not feel good.
This did not feel good. As kind of... it was a good book. It was a good read, but again, I would approach with caution. And again, I think it's just a great conversation. So now, when we were talking about this first pitch, so here's the A to Z of everything. Okay. And so here is our next book without the dust cover, but I still got it. And so again, this is The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna. So I'll just tell you a little bit about the author and why I'm going to pitch this book to you. Okay, because I've kind of gotten sucked in. So this author originally was recommended through one of our friends who has not come to book club, who says that she does need to figure out how to come to book club. But she recommended this book. And not only did she recommend this author to me, she gave me the first book. So I've gone through a couple of these books now. So it's an American writer. That was a bird hitting the window. I guess they're that clean. So an American writer, she lives in Washington. She practiced law in the background. So that's kind of some history. She's got some notable works, and this is actually probably not one of the most popular ones that she's read. So I think I found 5 books that were kind of selected works that they mentioned. So I've read The Women, I've read The Nightingale, and so this one, The Four Winds. So in 2000, this author shifted from romance to contemporary women's fiction. Okay. And the thing that gets me is emotional storytelling with multi-generational narratives and attention to historical detail. And all of that is seriously in these books. Okay. But the biggest part, though, is there's always a strong female character. So the first book I read, I was like, oh my gosh, and I was texting, and so that was Women in Vietnam. And so I think that that first book was recommended to me because it was a nurse in the role. And then the second one I picked up after that was Two Sisters during World War II. Yep. And so this is, I don't want to tell you too much about the book, but this you meet the character very on in her youth, and you're basically going to follow her whole journey. And so I'm picking it for I'm recommending it to you, pitching it to you is number one, strong female character. Number two, it's set in Texas. So yeah. And I can't say that, you know, history was my favorite subject in school, but the way that she builds in this historical detail, it really kind of helps you just kind of identify with the time. And so you're kind of learning about history as well.
Yeah.
So you're going to be learning a lot about the Dust Bowl and how that impacted the Panhandle. And so that's kind of the setting. And the historical detail that she pulls in.
Right.
But I found myself probably more so than any of the other characters, because I could have picked any of the other two books as well, because I think that they're great books. But I happened to be reading this when we started talking about books, and I got sucked into this character. She's naive, she's innocent. You see her grow, you see her confidence building. And then you see the dynamic with her children, her extended family. It really just brings in a lot there. I don't think that there's anything that I really need to warn you about. There's kind of just a very short relationship that's in there. I don't think that it's necessarily toxic or abusive, but it lands as to why she finds herself in the scenario that she's in.
Gotcha.
And then she perseveres. And then, as with all stories, they throw in an unexpected twist.
Always a twist.
Yeah, it's always an unexpected twist. But basically, every book has left me wanting to read more. And so I really think that you'll like this character, because I think you'll appreciate the strength. I think you'll appreciate the way that she gets through the struggles, and then just learning about history. So you're going to take a journey from Texas to California. This is back in like the 1930s, 1940s. And so it's just, it's just really crazy. And I would say, like, I've been living here in Texas for long enough that I've completely acclimated to the weather. But did I really know anything about the Dust Bowl? No, I really did not.
Right.
So I don't even think they went over that in any history class that I was in. But so the next book that was handed to me, and you read this book, this is West with Giraffes. So this book has been circling around book club, and everybody's been super excited. And I finally had to shame somebody who was holding on to this book to give it to me. So I started reading this book. And interestingly enough, it is during the Dust Bowl. So I just find that really interesting.
Yep.
And then you mentioned In Flagrante. And so we did a review on The Maid. And so one of her things that she's saying is like catching characters in Flagrante. So it's just interesting how you can find these little ties through the books. So I don't know if that's enough to make you want to read the book.
You had me sold at Dust Bowl.
Oh, I did? Oh, okay.
That is such an interesting time period. And, say something you said after reading about all these characters, it left you wanting more.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah.
Book pitch accepted. I will report back on the 4 wins. And so episode 3 will be us talking about Bug's book pitch to me and our thoughts on that matter. So I'm excited.
Excellent. Well, I, as usual, want to know the journey. By the time I feel like I read a book and I get my own thoughts about it, I'm going to be really interested, because we always delve into so much more when we actually come back and begin to talk about the book. So yeah, so super excited for the journey. And then when we come back, we'll decide what our next topic is going to be. I'm not really sure if we're moving into my favorite topic, which is adaptations. Is that the next one that's coming up?
Next one is adaptations.
Yeah, so I am full on into an adaptation already, so I'll save that for next time.
Okay.
So this is Bug signing off.
And Em as well, and we'll see y'all next time.